Welcome to the boiler room. What comes to mind when you picture a serial killer? Perhaps someone big, intimidating, or outright monstrous. However, the reality can be far more chilling, as not all killers fit this fearsome image. Some might walk among us appearing completely normal, even charming. Today, we delve into the story of a man whose outward charisma masked a dark and deadly reality. Join us as we uncover how his deceptive charm became one of his most terrifying weapons. So sit back, relax if possible, and let's enter the boiler room. A week into 1974, an 18-year-old Karen Sparks lay unconscious in a hospital bed. Days earlier, her basement apartment had been broken into and she was attacked, sexually assaulted, and left for dead. She regained consciousness but had suffered huge internal injuries. She had no memory of the attack. On February 1st, a student at the University of Washington called Linda Healy went missing from her basement room. The police found only a blood-stained nightdress and bloody sheets. There were worrying similarities between the two incidents, but detectives could find no further evidence, and so it began. For the first half of the year, one young woman went missing roughly every month in and around the Seattle area. In April, Susan Rancourt went missing. Two of her fellow students came forward to police to say they had seen a man hanging around the campus, his arm in a sling and asking for help, carrying some books to his Volkswagen Beetle. News of more disappearances spread across Washington and Oregon. As fear mounted for the women in these communities, so did pressure on the police. But there was no forensic evidence and tenuous links between the victims, just the sling and the car. On July 14th, new evidence emerged, but at the cost of two more tragic cases. Janice Ott and Denise Nasland went missing on the same day from Lake Sammamish State Park in King County, and several women spoke of an attractive man in tennis clothing asking for help moving a sailboat from his car. One fled in fear, but not until after he had introduced himself to her as Ted. Composite sketches were published in the local press. Details of the car were announced, and flyers printed. In September, the remains of Ott and Nasland were discovered 2 miles, 3 kilometers, east of the park. Then suddenly, the killings in the area stopped. Soon after, police in Salt Lake City were investigating the disappearance of several young women. One 18-year-old called Carol DeRonch was approached by a police officer and asked to drive with him to the station as her car had been broken into. When he tried to handcuff her in the car, she managed to escape. Again, she told police of an attractive man in a Beetle. Later that evening, another student went missing. Meanwhile, in Washington, the police had interviewed Elizabeth Klopfer, who told them she suspected an ex-boyfriend who matched the description and owned a Beetle. Reliable witnesses from the Lake Sammamish murders failed to pick out her boyfriend's image from a photo lineup, and so the name was discarded. Klopfer also called Salt Lake officers, but with no credible forensics there. Again, her information was merely filed. Her ex-boyfriend's name was Ted Bundy. The killer would not stop. In 1975, women continued to disappear, but now in Utah, Idaho, and Colorado. In Washington, police used early technology in compiling a computer database. And while primitive, the information, acquaintances of the victims, addresses, information from witnesses, Beetle owners called Ted garnered 26 names, one of which was Bundy. That summer, a Utah Highway Patrol officer stopped a driver reported for suspicious behavior and found a selection of ski masks, pantyhose, rope, and a crowbar in his Beetle. Bundy told police the items were merely either for skiing or household use. His apartment was searched, but they found nothing incriminating. He was released, having been put under surveillance. Salt Lake police again interviewed Kloepfer and impounded the beetle. Bundy had sold it. In it, FBI forensic teams found female hairs. In October 1975, Duranch picked our Bundy from a lineup. The police had enough to charge him with her aggravated kidnapping. But still, despite police from Utah, Washington, and Colorado meeting to share information, there was not enough to charge him with any murders. In February 1976, Bundy was found guilty of kidnap, and just months into his sentence, Colorado police charged him with the murder of Karen Campbell. He was transferred to Aspen, but managed to escape from a library and survived in the Aspen woods for 6 days before being caught. Despite being moved to a more secure facility, in December 1977, Bundy managed to squeeze through the duct system in his ceiling and flee. The escaped convict made his way to Florida. Within a fortnight, he'd broken into a sorority house and in a crazed 15-minute spree, attacked 4 women, killing 2. He then broke into another block and attacked a 5th woman, who survived. In February 1978, Bundy killed for the last time. His victim was his youngest, a 12-year-old called Kimberly Leach. Witnesses identified Bundy as being at the sorority house and at Leach's school. Bundy was arrested for merely driving a stolen vehicle. He fought with police before being handcuffed and telling the officer, "I wish you'd killed me." In the country's first nationally televised murder trial, Bundy refused a plea bargain that would see him avoid the death penalty for the 2 sorority murders. But such was the evidence against him, including bite marks on the victim that matched his teeth. He was found guilty. The nation was incensed by this seemingly charming, educated man who inflicted such terrible violence upon his victims. It was an exterior that had cheated police. As far back as Kloepfer's first call and description of her ex-boyfriend, detectives had deemed Bundy too clean-cut to be such a depraved killer. It wasn't long before another Florida court found him guilty of the murder of Leach. And so, Bundy faced 3 death sentences. A former law student, he was able to gamma stay of execution in 1980. But while locked up, he confessed to 30 killings, including those in Washington. It is thought that he may have murdered up to 50 women. Prior to his death in the electric chair in January 1989, Bundy sat for a televised interview with a Christian evangelist and blamed his behavior on an addiction to violent pornography. Outside the prison, hundreds gathered, and on hearing of Bundy's death, they cheered, danced, and let off fireworks,